Hello, doctors and students. Welcome again to another UCM podcast. I am your host for today, Tony Hook, and I just have something special today. Actually, all of them feel special, don't they? But we've been growing as a company. UCM's been growing. We love assisting practices on their growth. We really want to do that. Our mission, of course, is to bring hope and healing to sick and suffering people to the glory of God. And when we are doing that persistently, day in, day out, marching behind that banner, it's a huge blessing to be able to add to our team. And it's exciting. And so this is an opportunity today to be able to introduce a new team member joining us, Anthony Baker. Welcome to the UCM team. And we want to get you out there so people can connect with you and know that when they see you at conferences and the colleges, they go, oh, I know this guy. I've seen him, right? Some may already have seen you. We'll get to that in just a second. But Anthony, welcome to the UCM podcast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm super excited to continue to get to know all the docs, part of the upper cervical team here.
Absolutely. So you're the UC Practice Growth Advisor. I love that. It's a mouthful. We'll call it Growth Advisor for short. But I want people to know you a little bit. So share, where'd you come from? Share a little bit about your background.
Yeah, absolutely. I was born in Davenport, Iowa. Which was right next to Palmer. So things were already cooking from the beginning. Exactly. And then when I was 8 or 9 years old, my family decided we were going to move to Spartanburg, South Carolina, which was Sherman, basically. So, and as a kid, I was curious. So I needed to know what we were doing, why we were moving. I liked the cold. And turns out Dad wanted to become an upper cervical chiropractor. He felt called that was his calling to join the field and that he needed to go to Sherman, not Palmer. And that's where he met actually Dr. Perry Rush, who's now a close family friend of ours, and helped him dive into the world of upper cervical. And from there, I just saw the passion that my dad had for it. And as a kid, I needed to know why. And when I saw it wasn't just for the ability to help people, but also because it saved his life, saved my life in ways, it just became apparent that this is the world that I needed to be in and stay in and help grow in any way I can.
Yeah, good. That's solid, man. Just right from the beginning. Was there ever a time when you didn't know about upper cervical?
It felt like it, and then all of a sudden it's like that's all I've ever been around.
Right? Yeah, exactly. And so for those that may not know, your dad.
Dr. Scott Baker, yeah. Yep. And then also John Baker. So I come from a small lineage of
right.
So yeah, it's been in the blood. It was one way or another. I was gonna find my way here.
All right, so your exposure is there.
Yeah.
But is the passion there?
Of course, absolutely. When I was a kid, I actually went through similar thing of migraines, and I was under normal chiropractic care, and I would still have these debilitating migraines. I remember at 12 years old, I needed to do chores, and I felt like I wasn't a kid who, didn't want to pick up my slack or, always wanted to make sure everybody did their part. And I just, at one point, couldn't do chores. And I was just like, I'm telling you guys, I can't move. Everything hurts. And I don't know what it is. And it just, simple chiropractic care wasn't able to do it, unfortunately. And then sure enough, my first side posture toggle adjustment and lights came back on. I mean, literally within 2 weeks, I can't remember the last time I experienced a migraine, anything like that. And now it's a simple, okay, it's not just I'm dehydrated. I need to go get checked. That's my simple telltale sign. And it's just something that simple. I'm glad it wasn't anything worse than a migraine, because I've seen people experience and have symptoms that are far worse than that, and it takes longer. But for me, it helped me so dramatically at such a young age that it just made sense. If I can help somebody else receive that same level of relief in any way, then it just put a smile on my face.
Right. And now, being able to link up with UCM, I mean, being able to have that same heart be serving other doctors. and even your wife is engaged.
Yeah, we got her now working at working at the practice. She actually was scouted by my dad to work as an office manager because he saw obviously a ton of potential there, and she's been helping running the practice. And that's another great thing of working with UCM now. Not only do I get to continue to see people get affected by upper cervical work, but now I can help doctors understand and see how they can continue to grow, how they can help focus more on the patients and see how they can better impact their communities.
Yeah, I love it. So basically, it's a part of your life. Would you say that?
It's pretty easy to say.
It's in your extended family and your marriage and your house.
I mean, it's everywhere.
Yeah, that's right. How do you see your passion, your fire, this really helping to serve upper cervical practices?
I mean, it goes hand in hand when I'm talking with anybody and everybody. It's just one way or another, the conversation is getting led toward upper cervical chiropractic. And when I'm talking with doctors, it's as simple as, how are things working in the office? Are you able to focus on the patients? What's pulling you away from the patients? Let's get those stuff taken care of. And then, it's clear we're all on the same mission. It's to help sick and suffering people for the glory of God. It's just, nothing's better than that.
Right on. And then, so what are we excited the most about with this new venture, joining on with us? What gets you amped up, man?
I'm excited, the fact we're going to be going to the colleges, we're going to be going to these upper cervical events, and just more exposure. I love meeting people. I love meeting doctors and get to know how we're going to team up and continue to grow as a profession. And it's super exciting to know I'm eventually, hopefully, the plan is to become an upper cervical chiropractor myself. And so, being on the inside of helping doctors grow now, learning how to talk and communicate as a doctor now, I'm just super excited to continue to see how we can grow.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And we don't want you to leave.
We'll figure out how to do both.
You like it. No, that's it. That's when the fire is there, you follow it. Absolutely. So, and I'm glad that you have that for other practices wanting to help them grow. You mentioned the schools, going to colleges and stuff like that. For those that may not know, you're listening to this or watching it. Our heart as a company is going, okay, you know what? What if we can help influence students to explore upper cervical care and really steer them towards that in their trajectory, their career trajectory, and expose them to that? And hey, here's this and this. Dr. Bill Davis even wrote a new book, talking about your first 5 years in practice, and he's kind of laying out a kind of a case for upper cervical care, upper cervical practices, and starting that. So we're going to be, myself included, but mostly, you and another person that we hired, Melissa House. And so going to these campuses and talking with students, engaging with them, and steering them towards this. The world needs more upper cervical doctors, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And honestly, my dad would have just been a normal full spine doc had he not had somebody like Dr. Rush pushing him and letting him know, hey, upper cervical is what we need. We need more of these guys. And, the need for it just continues to grow. As we help practices grow, they're going to need another doc, and
that's it. That's it. Absolutely. Yep. And then of course, meeting them, also finding those that are looking for us to be an associate somewhere. We're going to add them to our associate talent network. If you know anybody that needs to be on there, absolutely go to our website and they can enter. It's free to join that, and because we're doing associate recruitment, which is awesome, and I'm excited about that. But that's not all you're doing, Anthony. That's part of what you're doing. Of course, you're serving the upper cervical community by helping out ultimately with sales and giving them advice on how to grow their practices. And so what's the first step if somebody wants to connect with you and see how they might grow in their practice, in collections or sticking points here and there? How can they,
So the best thing to do, yeah, absolutely, is, we're going to have to jump on a qualifying call. I'm going to need to see where things are within the practice. At best 10, 15 minutes is what we want to set aside for that. And then from there, it just takes about 10 questions, and we're able to see where things are within the practice, where you are in your practice growth stage, where you wanted to go, what you guys can handle now, and then shoot for the moon. Present the systems and show how we can get there and what it's going to take to get there.
Right. So that first initial conversation, just to see, what's going on, and kind of like a consultation, a new patient consultation almost, right? Yes. Cool.
And then from there, we're able to do our quote unquote report of findings. We'll set up a demonstration. It's let me do my X-ray analysis, see what the office needs, and go from there. I think that's how we're running this.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much. And for any that want to connect with Anthony and our team, you can go to ucmgrow.com. You can also go give us a call at 877-252-1230. That's 877-252-1230. And website is ucmgrow.com. All right. So at this point, I kind of wanted to take a little turn here and get into a big topic. And this is big on UCM's heart, our mission, as a company, our mission as individuals even, and I know it's your heart too, which is to help sick and suffering people find hope and healing. Like, that's what we want to be doing. And so we want to have doctors and offices and their team, to really find growth, to really truly find growth, succeeding on the mission of upper cervical care. And you're talking to doctors every day, right?
Every day.
Yeah. I mean, you're reaching out, you're talking to the team, of course, initially, and you're checking in with people who've maybe downloaded some of our free resources, and they're just kind of checking out this or that, or, those tools and whatnot. So with these conversations that you're having on a regular basis, what are some of the top frustrations that you're seeing offices run into or doctors run into?
Yeah, the biggest thing that doctors are always just trying to figure out what the next step is for getting a patient in the door. Sometimes it can be, why are my patients not finishing care plans? How do I help my team sound a little bit better on the phones? Maybe some disconnectivity within the office with an associate. So many different things can come into mind when it talks about the halt to growth within the practice.
Right. What would you say is probably the top reason, that a practice might not be experiencing the growth or getting the results that they're looking for? What would you say the top thing is, top barrier to growth, we'll say?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is when they don't have somebody to check in with or know what the potential of their office is. Having a company or having somebody that they can rely on to say, hey, this is how I'm running my office. Maybe I need to change this and focus on a different system of getting patients in the door or running the office entirely.
Okay. So tell me more about that then. So it sounds like you're saying, like, it's not just, hey, we need more ads or our SEO or something like that. But so, like, you're kind of talking about teaming up, I guess, or is that what I'm hearing, or what are you trying to say?
Yeah, I would say, offices are often struggling with finding new ways to implement getting patients indoors or hitting a certain mark of, we just are a referral-based practice. This is how patients have just been coming here, and we don't see it getting any better, or, don't really know how to based on what they've done in the past. So they're just kind of stuck per se, or happy with where things are, or not really knowing what it would take to change with what they're doing. Okay.
So maybe some guidance.
Yeah. I would say the biggest
insights into that.
Yeah. Not having somebody to check in with or know, is my office running to its full potential, or not having somebody else to necessarily tell them there's more room for growth here. Okay.
And how do you go about kind of uncovering some of that stuff as the guide, I guess you could say?
Yeah.
How are you uncovering some of those things?
So what we do is, we set up what's called a qualifying call. Similar to what we talked about earlier, it's making sure going step by step of where things are running within the practice, or like a report of findings or case history per se, to see how the office has been running and what the goals are within the office, and see, start asking some questions of what's holding that back.
Okay, like give me an idea, like some of the metrics. Like, are you talking about patient visits a week, right? I mean, are we? What else? What are the kind of questions are you asking? What are you looking to uncover there?
A simple qualifying call would be going over what are weekly patient visits at. How many monthly patients are new patients are finding the office? How many of those are coming from online? What the goal would be within that. How many new patients can the office handle? Some doctors say, "Oh, I'd love 30 new patients every month," but how much can the office actually fit into the schedule? And, what does that look like on a weekly basis and things like that? And some doctors don't know that. So understanding their schedule, or knowing how much they can actually fit in the office throughout the weeks, things like that. And then, going through the other qualifying questions of what does your team look like? What is the conversion rate once the new patient is in the office, actually starting care, and if we're running care plans and things like that.
Right. So how are you seeing solutions fit into these things? So like when you're hearing things like, hey, I want to grow, right? And then you ask the question of like, what's your team look like? And they don't have a front desk person. The doc's like, it's just me. I answer phones, and so like, I guess my question is, how important are you seeing as doing these kinds of calls, digging in a little bit, finding, kind of almost, inspecting the how the business is being run, right? And what systems are in play. How are you seeing that the issue is deeper than just like, hey, run some ads? Like you mentioned the teams, how important are some of these other things to the success and growth of the practice?
It's everything. I mean, your team is who's representing your office. It's not just the doctor. And so once the doctor, if they don't have somebody to answer the phones while they're checking a patient, then that's a system right there that, that needs something to check in on. We need to see what it would take to get somebody in office to answer phones, and how do they sound, make sure that they feel confident when they're talking with a new patient who, might be sick or suffering in some way. And they need somebody that they can trust and rely on. It's going to sound like they know what they're talking about, that they're understanding before coming into the office.
Right. Yeah. And so, what are some other things that you run into? Like, I'm just thinking of, if for those that are watching this podcast, I think my team's okay. And I think, I could use some new patients. But, what else might be on, what else maybe should they be checking out aside from maybe just talking to you? Maybe the next thing is they got to talk to you, and you'll walk them through that. But what are some other things that a good doc is paying attention to in the office as a leader, right? So you mentioned teams, you mentioned, how like stat tracking, is it conversation, in office conversations? Is it retention?
Yeah, so I just talked with a doctor today, actually, who's saying, they're seeing success, but they don't know. He almost joked, it's almost success by accident, because they don't know where it's coming from per se. They're saying, they don't know what specifically is working. It's just that it has been working up to this point, and now he's wanting to focus more on where the new patients are coming from, how the retention is looking, could they be doing better than what they are currently doing? And seeing a doc look at those things is fantastic for us, because that lets us know, okay, they're ready to progress forward with what they have. And what we hope to do is allow them to create a system or create a partnership where they can trust us to take on some of that responsibility, allowing them to focus more on the patient flow and patients that are there in office.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes there's, I know some docs that there's almost an aversion to tracking stats. It's like, how are your numbers? What percent of people who come and sit down and talk to you start care? What is your closing percentage from a consultation request into scheduled? Well, I think my team's doing okay. What's the percentage? What's the numbers? And there's almost I don't want to get into that stuff. Matter of fact, it happened today, a conversation I had. And it's like, sometimes just avoiding those stats and not wanting to get into it. But if you don't define it, if you don't track it, define what your goals are, and you don't track how you're doing, then how do you even know if you're going the right direction or not? Right? It's you're just throwing darts at a dartboard in the dark.
So that's one of the things that, when we're jumping on the phone call, that's what we're looking for. We're trying to find if there are certain things like that we need to help out with. And then from there, present ourselves as, hey, this is what we can do as far as helping provide systems in office, giving growth sessions as far as providing that for the team and letting this is what they could be sounding like, or this is what you could be saying, things like that.
Okay, well, walk me through some of that then. So you're kind of identifying any particular sticking points based on just kind of like a health history. You're asking specific questions. The person comes in, and you're doing the whole history, like you kind of mentioned that, the case history, I think you called it, right? And that's kind of because you're familiar with the office flow and the dynamic and the process. That's been your world, since you can remember. So you're tracking that stuff. You're walking the doc through everything, and then at some point though, you're making notes, mental notes. You're jotting stuff down, and then you're going to go and do what? What's your next step to try to really serve this office?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, from the information we get on the qualifying call from there, we say it's almost a report of findings. We're going to take that information and we're going to see what systems you would qualify for here at UCM, because we have a few different, resources that we use, and paid systems as well. That is all open and access to the upper cervical world. So depending on what we see, we're going to look at your growth stage. And based on what we've seen here, we have 7 different growth stages that you could fall into. And depending on what that is going to be, where we're going to suggest some kind of marketing system, some kind of system that is going to generate your online reputation, make sure that's representing the upper cervical office well, and also able to lead generate and or, help sick and suffering people find you easier.
Right. So you're saying that the right tool for the job is kind of really,
Exactly.
Yeah. Not overwhelming. Like, hey, I need to be ready to launch my second location. Hey, hold on, time out. We just need to hire a full-time CA. Let's get there first. And so how do we get you to that point till you find freedom in the practice? Yes, it's growth, but let's start here, and we'll walk with you through it.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. And that is our heart as a company. I know you know this too, but is to grow with the client, right? So here's your needs now, and as you grow, new needs pop up, right? Exactly. It's different problems. There's growth problems, and because systems gets tested, right? So you're seeing 15, 20, 25K in collections, and the patient volume that's required for that, you're going to hit. Your systems are going to be tested. Now it's like, okay, you know what? We got to really hone in our day one talks. Right. We need to really talk about reactivations. We need to really talk about patient education. And so, and those are all things that we may help with and assist with, point in the right direction. You mentioned growth sessions, right?
Exactly. So with each one of our systems, we'll have a way to check in, make sure that we're seeing where the office is. And of course, like you said, we want to grow with each office that we partner up with. So that's what we're going to be looking for in each one of the things that we provide come with a service of check-ins. So we see what's working, what we can continue to work on and continue to focus on to help get you to that next growth stage or get you where you're wanting to go. Some offices might not want to grow. Maybe that's their next phase, is figuring out how to phase out of the office or find somebody for that practice. You hear UCM, I know that's the back end of growth sessions or growth stages, but
still a need.
And that's one of the things, if we can help a doc from 1 to 7, we'll figure out how to get them there, depending on, I guess, when we partner up.
Right.
And then
I was just I was just talking with a client this morning, and they're looking to, they just brought on a new CA. And so I had helped kind of with the hiring process and training process and all that. And so they just brought somebody on, and they had never heard of upper cervical care before, which is common, right? Which is it shouldn't be common. It frustrates me so much. And what happens is there's that awareness that we're trying to do as a company, right? Obviously, and we're trying to see offices develop this as well, and this and so that people know they exist, right? And some of these newer practices, my heart goes out to them because people don't know they're there, and they don't know the life-changing impact that they can have. I was talking to another doctor a month ago, and closing up. A few years in, couldn't hang. That's the wrong word to put it. It couldn't break through. Couldn't get to where it was profitable or even just paying the bills. And it's stressful. It's tough. And my heart, I know yours does too. My heart goes out to docs who are struggling on that. They can't seem to break through, or they're maxed out, seeing 125 patient visits a week, and they've got a CA, and they're just, I can't get to that next level, and I don't know about this associate thing, and what's that going to do to the practice? And I've heard nightmare stories about this. So I want to ask you, all the conversations you've had, why are some offices, let's go to the growth stage 1, right? Collecting, $15K, less than 20,000, right? So, a month in collections. So why are some of those offices getting stuck that you're seeing? Why not growth? Why can't there be just a linear growth past that? What's a sticking point in there?
I mean, it really just depends on how the office is running. And that's what it's always going to come back to, is the doctor checking in with his team. Does the doctor have a team to check in with? What is the doctor doing for the new patients when they come on? Is he educating them on what they're going through and providing a care plan that they can stick with and that they're going to follow through in and then want to stay on afterward? So all of those questions come up when we're seeing what's causing them to get stuck. And once we figure out that and we provide a system as, okay, it's not the fact that you're not getting new patients. It's you're not taking care necessarily or using the most of the patients that you're getting. And once we get those systems nailed out, then we start seeing the growth take off. Team starts to understand how to take care of the patients and what it looks like as far as keeping a patient there. Then we start to see some growth for sure.
Do you see any changes to that, in growth stages 2 or 3, and like where there's different sticking points?
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to when there's more growth there and then there's still a little bit of a plateau, then we start talking about, is the office filled up? Are all the appointment times booked? No. Okay. So then that means that there's something there, whether it's the team getting new patients in there, how many new patients are calling in and how many are actually coming in for the appointment. We're starting to look at those next steps for sure.
Right. Yeah. And again, different tools for the job, right? Yes, new patients is always a thing, right? That's always top. We do our upper cervical survey every year, and what's the number one need? It's always new patients, right? Of course, but there's all these other things like if you have a leaky bucket, it's let's plug the holes too. It's not just throw more water in it. Let's also plug the holes, right? So it's nice to be able to team up with docs and see those wins. I know I personally enjoy it. We're working on that, with our client success team and really dialing that in and going, okay, you know what? Hey, we've got this piece rolling. This gear's turning great. It looks like everything's pointing to this. We need to generate more content. And so here's what that looks like, and here's the topics, and here's how you can do it. I was walking somebody through the office. Here's where you can record your videos. This is a great spot. Here's 5 that you could do today, and here's some tools that make it easy for you. We'll edit them too. All these different things. It's okay. Let's get that gear working. Okay, now we got 2 gears churning here. Okay, what's next? And they start to see that momentum, that growth, and it becomes business becomes fun again. So. That's getting them unstuck, right?
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, that so for those docs who are maybe paying attention to this and watching this and maybe watching a replay, how do they take that first step? What's the first step towards this?
Well, outside of the qualifying call, that's the very beginning step, is qualifying practice. Seeing where things are. That's the number one. We need to know how the office is running, what the office is, where it's wanting to go, and how it's been running. And then from there, we can know what system it's going to take to get you there.
Right. I love it. So giving us a call, you can do that. You can go on our website. You can request a qualifying call where we would sit down and walk you through, those questions that you mentioned. Having those questions and just kind of almost like a detective. We're poking here, poking there, and seeing, okay, maybe this is a spot we need to circle back on, and then that's the first step, right? Is to set that time. So if you're wanting to see how you can experience more growth and unstick yourself, then we'd love to help you. I know Anthony would love to help you. I'd love to help you. Our whole company would like to help you. So go online, request that first step there, get started, and we'd be happy to go from there and just see where that takes us. Right?
Absolutely. Looking forward to anybody that connects. And yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Anthony. I appreciate you, man, and look forward to helping more people along your side. And for those that have joined us on this, to you doctors and students out there, thank you so much for tuning in. Go Team Upper Cervical.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone.